out our note sheet from yesterday and flipped over to the back. We didn't get to the back yesterday. We waited on that so you guys could have some time to work and kind of absorb that first part of the lesson that we did yesterday. So on the back side of your sheet,
wait, what sheet are we doing?
I changed my mind a little bit from after I wrote it.
Are we doing this sheet?
We're not going to worry about those first two on the back. We're not going to worry about the first two on our back. We're going to focus on our factoring piece. So go ahead and we're going to focus on 12 through 15, and we're just going to pick a couple of these to do so you guys can have some time to practice and ask your questions. All right, so building off of what we did yesterday. Yesterday, we factored, aka went in the reverse of the distributive property, by finding what was called the greatest common factor. We're still going to use the greatest common factor today, but today we're going to build on it and use a method called grouping. How do I know, Miss Golly, when to use grouping versus what I did yesterday? Well, what we did yesterday, we looked for a greatest common factor. Look at question number 12 for me. Let's go through our process. Look at the number pieces. Do we have a greatest common factor besides 1 for the number pieces?
Yep.
No, we've got a couple 4s, but not everything has a 4 or something that can go into 4. So nope. Let's look at the variables. First and third terms have an A, but nothing else does. First and second terms have an X, but nothing else does.
This one's prime.
The third and fourth ones have a Y, but nothing else does. Second and fourth have a B, but nothing else does. So yeah, based on our work from yesterday, you might be saying, okay, Miss Golly, it's prime. Cool, let's move on. However, if you can't find a greatest common factor right away, and you have 4 terms, we can do what's called factor by grouping, and that's the process we're going to go through today. So look for a GCF first, always. And then if you have 4 terms, we're going to do what's called factor by grouping. I'm going to show you 2 methods for this, and you're going to have your pick, what you like best. So when I go through that first method, if you're like, no, maybe not quite for me, sit tight. We're going to do a second method. Okay, I'm going to show you 2 ways. So the first way, we're really going to see the grouping piece. I'm going to group, literally group together with grouping symbols, the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. By grouping them together, now what we're doing is creating 2 smaller polynomials. Now we've got 2 binomials. Now we're going to do the GCF way for each set of parentheses, for each group that we have up there. Okay, some of you, Miss Golly, this is really hard. Guys, all I've done is put 2 sets of parentheses up there. That's all I've done. Look inside your first set of parentheses. Look inside your first set of parentheses. What would my GCF be?
4x.
It would just be an X, right? I have a 4, but then I don't have anything with the BX. So all I can do, my GCF is just an X. That's all they have in common. So I'm going to do the same thing we did yesterday. I'm going to divide by that greatest common factor. So let's see, 4ax divided by x. 4a, yep, the x's are going to simplify. And then on that second one, I have a bx divided by x. And we're just going to be left with minus b. Just like yesterday, parentheses around what's left, GCF goes out front. So all we're doing, guys, by grouping right now, we're just creating 2 small questions like we did yesterday with GCF. That's all we're creating right now. Look at the second set of parentheses. What's common there? The y is common.
Oh, these parentheses have to be the same.
The y is common. So let's divide. The y's will simplify. I'm left with a 4a.
Wait, is that 5?
The y's simplify again. I'm left with a minus b. Parentheses, GCF goes out front, and my sign was a plus. The y I pulled out was positive. So far, guys, let's recap. All we've done is we put parentheses around the first two terms and the last two. And then we did our GCF process from yesterday for both groups. That's all we've done so far. So really nothing new from yesterday. We really have one final step. What do you notice is the same up there? What do you see repeated? The 4a minus b. The two sets of parentheses. Guys, the two sets of parentheses, they have to match. The two sets of parentheses, draw a little arrow here, they have to match for this process to work. If they don't match, then you didn't get the right common factor from one of the groups. You have to go back and look at your common factor if they don't match. So now because those match, they now have 4a minus b in common. They match. Both of my terms have a 4a minus b. That's my GCF. I know it's kind of taken us a step up from yesterday, because yesterday our GCFs were things like x and y. Now we have a binomial as a GCF, and that's okay. It matches, they have it in common. So what do we do with our GCF? We divide by it. 4a minus b, 4a minus b. Now if you're thinking, holy cow, Miss Guy, how do I ever divide by something like that? Guys, we talked a lot yesterday. The same thing divided by itself is 1. Whether it's 3 divided by 3, x divided by x, or 4a minus b divided by 4a minus b. Simplifies. What's left? X. Simplifies. What's left? A y. Same process. I put my parentheses. I put my GCF out front. Then I'm finished. My final answer looks like something I would want to distribute. This is something we were distributing a couple classes ago. Some of you liked the box method. Some of you liked the distributive method. Now, for some, you're like, okay, Miss Golly, that's clicking for me. I group, I find the GCFs, and then I get a second GCF. Yep, I'm good. And some of you are like, Miss Golly, I'm not sold on that. You kind of lost me a little bit. So let's try method 2. A lot of you absolutely loved the boxes when we were multiplying. Well, we're going in the reverse of that multiplying. So let's make boxes work for that too. I'm going to draw again, guys, this is method 2. Method 1 is finished.
Are we doing number 12 yet?
Yep, we're going to do number 12, but I'm going to do it the second way because I want to show you that they both work. You get the same thing. Okay? Get the same thing. So since we're going in the reverse of the distributive property, when we distributed, we filled in these outside boxes. If we're going in the reverse, what do you think we're going to fill in first?
Inside.
The inside. So you're going to take the 4 terms we start with and put them in the inside boxes. So we've got our first term is a 4ax. Second term is a negative bx. Third term, 4ay. And the last term is a minus by. So we're working our way in the reverse of the distributive property. We're going in the reverse of the distributive property. So I'm going to start with my 4 terms in the middle boxes, and we're going to work our way out. So I like to start with the first row. Look across your first row. What is our greatest common factor for the first row? Just an x, right? Okay. I like to do the rows first. You can do the columns first if this is the method you choose. Second row, GCF is what? Just a Y, yep. Okay. First column. What's common in the first column? We've got a 4, right? What else is common? An A. 4A is common for that first column. All right, now the last row. Here's the one catch with the boxes. So I've had a lot of people today really like the boxes. It's a little more cut and dried. I think so. Here's the one catch with the boxes. If you have a double negative, I've got a negative bx and a negative by. My GCF has to also be negative. That's the only little trick you have to remember if you want to use the boxes versus our first way with the grouping. So we have to make it negative, and then what's common in that last column? Just the B. Take a look at what we have, guys. We have 4A minus B, and we have X plus Y. We get the same thing. I don't care which way you do it. We get the same result. It's whichever way makes more sense to organize in your brain. In this case, I think the boxes are shorter. I know some of you with the multiplying saw the boxes as a longer way because you had to draw boxes. You're just drawing a tic-tac-toe board, guys. It's 4 lines. It's not a lot to draw. We're going to skip over number 13. I figured out that that isn't the best question for us. So we're going to take a look at 14. I want to show both methods again. If you've already decided on one, guys, and you want to go ahead and try 14 yourself, if you've already decided, Miss Golly, I know this is the way for me, go ahead and try it out. If you're still unsure, I'm going to go through both up here. So you kind of decide where you're at. If one of those ways really clicked, go with it. Check your answer with me at the end. If you're going to do the grouping, the first method, when you group, guys, you have to make sure that the negative sign in front of the a squared stays with the a squared. So if you're doing the first method, you have to make sure the negative sign in front of the a squared goes in that second set. GCF for the first set. GCF for the first set is a 3. And then I'm left with an a plus. 3 divided by 3 is 1. It has to be a plus 1. You can cross out those 3's all you like, guys, but we talked yesterday. 3 divided by 3 is 1, not 0. Doesn't disappear. Now, when you go to your second set of parentheses, same thing we just talked about with the boxes. If you have a double negative, you have to factor out a negative. So we have a double negative in that second set, so I have to take out a negative. And in this case, they have in common an A. Sorry, guys, I don't know why this is so touchy today. Take out an A. So I divide, negative divided by negative is a positive. All I have left is an A. A squared divided by A. We subtract the exponents. We just get A. Then in that second one, negative A divided by negative A. Same thing divided by itself is 1. Negative divided by negative makes it a positive 1. GCF goes out front. So a couple things you really have to look at there. When you group, when you put your parentheses on that first step, the negative in front of the a squared has to go in that second set of parentheses. It goes with the second group, not outside of it. It has to be inside of it. Then when you go to factor that second group, you've got a negative a squared and a minus a. You've got the double negatives in there. Your GCF has to be negative. I see my parentheses match. It's a plus 1. It's a plus 1. I'm left with 3 minus a. My GCF is a plus 1. And guys, it doesn't matter if you write it in front or behind. The order you multiply in doesn't matter. What it comes down to is one set of parentheses has to be a 3 minus a, and the other set needs to be an a plus 1. The order you put those two groups in doesn't matter. Okay. So you could also put, if you're wondering what I just said, I can put the a plus 1 first. I can put the a plus 1 first and then the 3 minus a. Now, if this wasn't the method of your choosing, you're like, Miss Callie, just get to those boxes. Those boxes are just, they make sense to me. Cool, let's do the boxes. Here we go. I'm going in reverse, so my 4 terms go in the middle boxes. My 4 terms go in the middle boxes because we're working our way inside out. Reverse distributing. I start with the first row. You can start the first column if that's what makes sense to you. First row, I have a 3a and a 3. What's common there?
3.
A 3. That second row, double negative. I have to take negative a. That's the one catch, guys, with either method you choose. I know I said before it's just with the boxes, but now we saw it with our first method too, with that grouping method also. I'm on the first column now. What's common in the first column? Just a. The second column, here's where I get a lot of questions, is always that situation in the second column. I've got a 3 and a negative a. So when we look at that, we're like,
Negative 3a.
Miss Golly, there's nothing in common. So if there's nothing in common, guys, what can I always use as a GCF? What can always go into anything I want?
1.
A 1. We can't leave an empty box. You can't leave an empty box. So if you're stuck, if you're staring like, Miss Golly, I can't do anything with the 3, they don't both have an A, then it's a 1. So here we go. We've got a plus 1, and we've got 3 minus a. We've got the same thing. We've got the same thing. Now I know we've only done a couple examples, but I want to make sure at this point, guys, that I give you time to try this to work and ask questions. So the time's going to be yours. If this is something you're like, yep, I really want to make sure I can practice this in class, then flip to the back of assignment 3 and work on those 6 questions today. Spend your time on those 6 questions today. The front side is all stuff we've covered prior to today. So if that's where you want to spend your time, get a couple of those under your belt, go for it. Remember, next class, I'll give you about probably 10-15 minutes to ask questions or finish assignment 3. And then we are going to take a quiz over everything that is on assignment 3. So if you can do assignment 3, the quiz will be easy for you. I didn't put anything tricky on there by any stretch. So the time is yours.